What's going on, guys? So today we're talking about the best decks from YCS Hartford. This graphic and this image is actually from Master Duel Meta, duelingsmeta.com. I think those are the same thing. I don't know. But anyway, I got this from Master Duel Meta. It's a very nice graphic, by the way. But just taking a look at some of the best decks. And the first thing I noticed too when looking at this graphic, and that's something that should be exciting, even if maybe the format, just because of the way the YCS ended, doesn't appear to be super duper exciting, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the first thing that I noticed is that there's a lot of diversity, right, in the format, and because you see like Dragon Link took a spot, which isn't really too much of a surprise. But then we also see there was a DDD deck list, there was an ABC deck list, there was an Adagnister deck list, right? And what's interesting too about that is that, okay, yes, I do want to caveat the ABC was an adventure ABC, but there was still a lot of pieces in it that are ABC related, and that is the interesting thing about the adventure package is that yes, you can just kind of run it in every deck, and yes, it seems like every deck is just running it. It does add a lot to a rogue deck, and what I always say when it comes to rogue decks, and we saw this from the actual winner of the YCS event, is that you can do one of two things when you're running a rogue deck. You can either A, make your deck so fast that it can compete with a meta deck, or B, make the entire game so slow that the meta decks are just as slow as your deck now, right? And the adventurer package allows for those rogue decks, those rogue strategies to be just as fast, even without the presence of, let's say, a Predaplant Verte Anaconda. But the Attic Nister and the DDDs, those are our true heroes of YCS Hartford, being able to get to the top cut with Attic Nister and DDD. I don't have those deck lists for you. I actually have the first place deck list, and that's all. But if we keep moving forward, we do see that there are 2 Drytron, 2 branded Eldritch, 3 Sky Striker, and 3 Floanderies. Something of note with Sky Striker is that they were running the Adventurer package. One of the Sky Striker lists was running the Adventurer packages. Now, I also believe that in the top 8, there were 2 Sky Striker lists. And I believe it was the 2 dudes, because I was actually watching the event. And it was 2 dudes, both from Australia. I think they might even be from the same locals that were in the top 8, both playing the exact, kind of similar, not exact same, but kind of similar decks. And it's interesting that we see Adventure being able to be even thrown in with Sky Striker. Branded Eldritch is probably going to be your second best version of Branded now that Predaplant Verte Anaconda is gone. I know we saw Branded could be kind of splashed into almost anything with Verte Anaconda. But with that card getting banned, you kind of only are limited to a certain type of deck. And it's unfortunate, but it does appear like Shadal branded, Invoked branded, they're not getting you there, right? Eldritch branded, what that's going to be able to do is, because here's the thing, when it comes to Invoked branded or Shadal branded, which is why we don't see either of those 2 lists or type of decks in the top 32, is if you don't draw the branded engine, you just draw the Invoke engine, you're going to start to struggle, right? Even when we look at Despia branded, if you're drawing the Despia cards, if you're doing Despia things, you should still be in a decent spot. Whereas if you're doing Shadal things, if you're just doing Invoke things, it's just not going to be enough, right? But if you're doing Eldritch things, you're going to be in a great spot. But it is worth noting, there are no other Eldritch decks. So not only is this the second best branded deck from YCS Hartford, but it's also the best Eldritch deck. So that might be interesting going forward to see, is branded Eldritch the best version, because you do get the Foolish Burial on your Golden Lord. So you do get access to it without having to use a Sanguine, right? Even though that's all it's for, but you don't have to see the Scarlet to get to the Golden Lord, right? Drytron, Floanderies, not really a surprise that we're seeing them that kind of in that spot. But the top 3 decks are a bit of a surprise. The Punk deck, it's essentially just adventure punk. There's a few like there's like punk synchro and punk, and it's just because of the way that punk works. On top of the fact that emergency teleport is back, on top of the fact that the adventure package is so good, that's why we saw punk doing as well as it did. On top of the fact that, listen, let's be real. We're gonna take a look at the number 1 YCS deck list in a second here. Everybody was main decking D barriers. Almost every single person, because they all knew the best two decks in the room were Branded Despia and Sword Soul Tenny, and D Barrier counters both of them, right? And so it's I kind of want to put a caveat by Punk, just because, listen, Sword Soul Tenny had the exact same amount of representation in top 32, and what was also being hard countered the entire day, right? Token Collector is quite the card, right? I don't believe I think there may have been one Sword Soul Tenny list in the top four, but there might not have been any at all. I think that's what it was. And then Brandon Despia not having the greatest showing, only having 4 decks in the top 32, but it did get to second place. I think that is still the best deck of the format. But I think the format is going to kind of shape in an interesting way after YCS Hartford, right? So let's take a look at the best deck, right? So this was Po Jiang's YCS winning deck profile. This is as of Ready for Duels Twitter account, and uh, just looking at this, it's like kind of degenerate, right? And this is kind of what we see now from Sky Striker. It's not really the deck's fault that Hornet Drones is at 1, multi rolls at 1, Engage is at 1. That's not particularly speaking Sky Striker's fault that they're kind of forced to run this style of deck where you have 9 hand traps in the form of 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs, 3 copies of Effect Veiler, and 3 infinite permanences. And then we're running, the main Sky Striker engine. Like, this is kind of, if you just look at the Sky Striker package, this is kind of like maxed out, like, Sky Striker package. Like, I don't know what other cards you would be looking for if you're trying to play Sky Strikers, because you have 3 copies of Rose, 2 copies of Ray, right? And then if we continue with the Sky Striker package, you have Area 0, 2 Afterburners, like I said, 1 Hornet Drones, 1... Which one is this? It's like Shark something? I don't know. 3 copies. The picture's kind of like fuzzies, and I don't know all the cards by heart. I know that these are 3 Widow Anchor, 1 Multi-Roll, 1 Engage, right? That package, though, like, I know what this card does. I just don't know the name. But anyway, that package, that is the Sky Striker package, right? And that's, what, 5... This row is 10. 15 cards, right? You can't run a 15-card deck. So we have to run 3 copies of Demise of the Land to search for 3 copies of Mystic Mine, 2 Pot of Prosperity to get us to either the Demise of the Land or Mystic Mine. Reinforcement of the Army to get us, obviously, there to our Sky Striker monsters, right? And then 1 copy of Terraforming to also get us to the Mystic Mine. But what's interesting about this is we are running 4 searchers for field spells as well as 4 field spells. And it's actually 5, excuse me, I forgot about Metaverse, right? But it's just getting to Mystic Mine is that important that you would rather open Terraforming, Metaverse, Demise of the Land, Mystic Mine, than anything else. Because what we're going to do there, we're going to be able to search Terraforming, get to Area 0, we're going to do Area 0 things, and then we're going to be able to set, Demise of the Land, and be able to get to, and then we're going to activate Mystic Mine, excuse me. If they out our Mystic Mine, and they special summon a monster, we play our Demise of the Land, and we get another Mystic Mine right back out, right? And the thing is, when it comes down to this, as we do see 3-dimensional barriers, like I said, the 1 Metaverse and the 3 Trap Trick, that's a better call, right? Trap Trick can search infinite permanents. It cannot search Metaverse. So there's really only 1 target in the main deck for Dimensional Barrier. We are seeing the Artifact Sanctums and the Evenly Matches in the side. Trap Tricking for Evenly Match isn't actually that bad, though. You kind of do lose your element of surprise when it comes to it, because Evenly Match is kind of a board-breaking card, so if your opponent knows that you're about to play Evenly Match, it's a little bit different, but just getting to D barrier, that's all you really need. Like I said, when you have Tenny Sword Soul, which can only really synchro summon, you have Branded Despia that can only fusion summon, you're going to be in that spot. And it's going to be interesting to see if those decks either go by the wayside or start to evolve in the sense that, okay, you play D barrier, I can still play the game, right? That's kind of why we saw D barrier go out, because it doesn't say Link, right? So a lot of players end up, even if they are running an Xyz based deck or a fusion or a synchro based deck or a ritual based deck, they'll still start to just Link summon, right? And that's the cool thing. They can play around D-Barrier in that way. We're going to see if those decks kind of evolve that way. But moving into the side deck, 1 Scythe for the 3 Sanctum, 2 Ghost Ogre, 2 Nibiru's, 1 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Twin Twisters. Oh, this is the Spell and Trap removal. Okay, that's that one. Like I said, I don't know Sky Striker cards. I apologize. But like I said, 3 Sanctum, 3 Evenly Match. I don't know the names of all the Sky Striker cards. I've never really been into it. Let's see if we can zoom in, if that'll help. I don't think it will, though. Yeah, it's Twitter, so that's as far as it's going to let us go. That's fine. So, moving forward to the extra deck, 1 Access Code, 1 Halki Fibrax, 1 Dark Charmer. I believe this is Nightmare Unicorn. 1 Celine, 3 Kagari, 3 Shizuku, 2 Hayate, 1 Zeke, and 1 of the Earth one. And I think this, I'm pretty confident that's this one's name. This one's name is the Earth one, right? It's Kagari, Hayate, Shizuku, Zeke, and the Earth one. But just kind of take a look at this deck one more time. It's just, it's unfortunate that this is kind of the way the format has devolved into. But like I said, you could take the negatives of the fact that, Mystic Mind Turbo, essentially, won YCS Hartford, or we can take a look at the fact that a deck like Sky Striker was able to evolve and play sort of this, like, stun, weird thing that we had going on here, and able to beat out all of these meta, Sword Soul, Tenny, Dragon Link, Drytron, Floanderies, and Punk even was a really solid deck, but also like Branded Despia as well. Because keep in mind that Pojiang, if there was 3 Floanderies players in Top Cut, then that probably means Pojiang had to have played at least 1 Floanderies player. And this deck does nothing. Like, there's nothing at all. Like, there's nothing in the side, and there's nothing in the main that can really play around Floanderies, because Floanderies can easily play around Mystic Mind. Floanderies obviously doesn't care about D-Barrier, Sanctum, and it doesn't really care about Evenly Matched either. So I'd be curious to see how this deck does against Floanderies, but I think that, the Sky Striker cards just get you there if you're facing a deck like Floanderies or any other stun deck for that matter. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know in those comments down below. Do you think Mystic Mind should be banned? I think that was the top tweet, right? That was watch them ban or limit demise of the land instead of Mystic Mind. Yeah, yes. That does sound like Konami. But let me know in those comments down below what you guys thought of this. Make sure you guys click that like button and the subscribe button to show your support for the channel. But most importantly of all, have a good day.